This is Wraith from Wraith Rain. I'm an author of serialized gay romance fiction. Every week on this podcast, I'll be reading a chapter from one of my gay fantasy shifter serials called Dragon's Reign. I'll explain at the break how you can find out more about this story and others I write. So let's get to it. Chapter 20. Almost Normal. No, your brothers. No, that's impossible, Landry. That bomb would have killed people. Caden shook his head. There was this disbelieving smile on his lips that turned to a grimace. More tears rolled down Landry's pale face. She scrubbed them away with the sleeves of her shirt. Yeah, I know. You could have been killed. Were you killed? Is that how you became? She gestured at him. No, you don't die. Iolaire bonded with me just the second before the bomb went off and transformed us into a dragon. That bomb didn't even tickle me, Caden assured her. The spirit was very still in his chest, listening, seemingly. But wait, we need to get back to your brothers. What exactly did you overhear? Have you told Wally? Landry shifted uncomfortably on the stool. How could I tell Wally? He'd hate me. Why would he hate you? Wally doesn't seem to really hate people, so I don't think he'd even hate your brothers, Caden objected. More tears squeezed out of Landry's eyes, and she covered them with her shirt sleeves. All the things I've said about shifters to him. If he was going to hate you for those things, Landry, he'd already do that. But he doesn't. It's not just that, and I didn't just overhear things, she whispered, her voice hoarse and strained. She was hiding the entirety of her face behind her hands now. It felt like there were ice cubes in Caden's stomach, but he couldn't believe that Landry would ever hurt anybody. I don't see Landry. They asked me about the square, she continued on in that strained whisper. Okay. That cold sensation increased. Iolaire fluttered its wings. Like, what did they ask you? What the security would be like on the anniversary. She said it so softly, he almost didn't hear her. Didn't you ask why they wanted to know that? I mean, Landry asking about security on the anniversary with them hating shifters and... Come on! You must have known they were up to no good. It came out harsher than Caden intended. She curled forward, still shielding her face with her sleeves. I know, but I thought they just wanted to do a protest. Caden squeezed the top of his nose as he felt a sudden headache coming on. Iolaire looked out of his chest with a sad expression. Okay, so you told them about the security measures that Wally got from the police? Yeah, she mumbled. He felt nausea bubbling up in his stomach. Could Landry have unwittingly helped her brothers plant that bomb? The police would consider her an accessory. They might not even believe she was innocent. They could believe she was in on it. There are plenty of people that could testify about her prejudice towards shifters. It wouldn't be that hard for the police and then a jury to connect the dots and find her just as liable as her brothers. What did you overhear? He finally asked. His voice sounded faint to his own ears. Jasper Hawes was at the house when I got home last night, she answered, scrubbing her eyes with her sleeves again. It took Caden a minute to place the name with a face, and then who that was. Jasper Hawes was the most visible person in Humans First. He was the one that got on all the news programs, looking clean cut in a suit, with perfectly coiffed hair, with a bright smile and handsome face, and talked in a calm and pleasant manner about how shifters should really be called hosts. Humans First used that term because they compared the spirits to parasites. What would Jasper Hawes be doing at your house? Caden blurted out. How high are Ross and Harvey in Humans First? Just last year, they started making a name for themselves, she explained as he handed her a tissue to blow her nose. Do you Remember when Humans First put the bonfires up in front of the courthouse and burned effigies of the spirits? Yeah, Caden said carefully. He remembered thinking that it reminded him of the burning crosses that the Ku Klux Klan used to do. Don't tell me your brothers were behind that. She nodded. Jasper saw them as people who would actually get things done rather than just talking. Caden closed his eyes and thought, like planting a bomb? That kind of getting stuff done? That nausea and cold intensified. Isle Lair wrapped its wings tighter around itself. Caden rubbed his face as if he was still sleeping, and he could wake up, and this would be all a dream. Okay. So they asked you about security. This bomb thing happens, and then you find Jasper Hawes at your house. She nodded. I surprised them. The three of them were huddled together in the front room. Jasper looked mad. My brothers were saying that it wasn't their fault and that there wasn't any evidence. They stopped talking then when they saw me. They were so freaked by me coming in that neither of them asked where I'd been. And you didn't tell them? She shook her head. God, no. If they were in on the bombing and they knew that I had been around King Valerius. She hugged herself and shivered. He frowned then. Does Humans First work with kids? She looked at him curiously. Kids? Like little kids or Tilly's age? Do you know any kids in the movement? He asked. She shook her head. Not that I know of. Why? And there aren't any shifters in Humans First? He was asking because of the nightshine he had seen in the girl's eyes in the square. She looked at him with wide eyes as if he'd sprouted another head. Are you kidding me? Humans First is all about hating on shifters. He thought of Rose and how she'd been kicked out by her parents after becoming a bee shifter. She hadn't wanted to be one. She likely had resented being one. Maybe she still did. It was a burden, not a blessing. It certainly hadn't helped her in life. So we could very well see someone in her circumstances agreeing with Humans First that spirits were parasites and wished they could be eradicated. But clearly, Landry didn't know of any. 2 major things happened outside yesterday, Caden said. First, there were smoke bombs set off. Landry's eyes widened. You think? And then a girl around Tilly's age put down the backpack with the bomb in it. Her eyes showed nightshine. I thought at the time that the smoke bombs were to draw attention away from her actions, Caden explained. But maybe it was a coincidence, and she took advantage of it. Or maybe it was coordinated. Or maybe she and whoever else is in on this found out about the Humans First, planned to disrupt the anniversary, and planned accordingly. You're thinking that the smoke bombs might have been my brothers, and maybe that was all they had planned? That they weren't behind the big bombing? Landry looked so hopeful. It would be a pretty big coincidence, though, Landry, he said, not trying to squelch her hopes, but at the same time not wanting her to latch onto something that might not be true. Yeah, she murmured, her gaze growing distant and thoughtful. We've had Humans First meetings at the house. She shifted uncomfortably, and so did he. He had no idea that Landry was so into this. I haven't seen any little girl, let alone a shifter girl, and I know all my brother's close friends and who they would trust. Landry. He licked his lips as anxiety nibbled at him. He wasn't sure if he wanted the answer to his next question. He wasn't sure if it mattered now that she had clearly turned over a new leaf in regards to shifters. But he asked anyways. Landry, were you a member of Humans First? She shook her head and he let out a breath he hadn't known he had been holding. I was thinking about it, though. But you know I'm not much of a joiner. Caden let out a laugh that sounded a little hysterical. Yeah, who knew that your antisocial tendencies would end up causing something good to happen? She cracked the first real smile he'd seen on her face since Tilly went into the back room. He had a feeling, though, that she wouldn't be smiling much longer after he said the next thing. You know that we have to tell people about this, right? He asked. The alarm that filled her face would have almost been comical from its hugeness, if not for the seriousness of the situation. She waved her hands as if she could ward off telling the authorities. No, you can't. My brothers would go to jail, even if they were only responsible for the smoke bombs. You know that the courts are just filled with ravens, and every judge is a raven. They never give someone in Humans First a chance, she rattled off. He pinched the top of his nose again. Her stereotypical beliefs about shifters hadn't gone away, and he shouldn't expect them to in a day. Besides, she wasn't altogether wrong. Every judge was a raven, but the raven shifters did seem to care about facts and justice, at least what he'd heard from his father. She continued, Besides, if it was just the smoke bombs, then no one was hurt by that. It was just annoying. Landry, he said firmly, we don't know it was just the smoke bombs that they were behind. The fact that Jasper Hawes himself was at your house makes me doubt it was just smoke bombs. But he might have just been there to ask them if they were behind the big bomb. Maybe he thought they went too far, she argued. Maybe he was, and maybe they did, he said gently. We can't take that chance, though. We need to let the authorities know so that they can sort this out. But Caden, I might be totally wrong, she cried, and he saw the guilt and fear and hope in her face. If I turn my own brothers in, I just can't do it. What if something else happens? He challenged her. She blanched, and one of her hands went to her mouth. What? No, I mean, the anniversary's over. They wouldn't. Whoever placed that bomb failed yesterday. I bet they're going to try again, he told her. And if we say nothing and your brothers are behind it, wait. Okay, I get it. We can't let it happen again. But maybe we could find out more before we tell anybody? Get evidence and stuff, she offered desperately. Evidence? What are we, CSI Emporium? I could get into their rooms and computers. I know their passwords. They think I don't. But they always use the stupidest passwords that are obvious to anyone who knows them, she quickly babbled. And they're supposed to be going to Humans First meeting tonight. We could follow them and see what happens. Caden imagined them sneaking to the back of a smoky hall with lots of angry people ranting about how shifters, or hosts, get everything over humans, and that they aren't just parasites in people, but on the world as a whole. He then imagined a single bee buzzing around and checking faces and hearing things said in whispers. He imagined a rat's whiskers twitching as it scurried its way into rooms that they couldn't access, to hear Jasper Hawes talk about how bombing the square hadn't worked the first time, but it might the second. Iolaire hummed at him in agreement with these ideas. If we do this, then we have to tell Wally and Rose, Caden blurted out. Tell Wally what? Wally asked as he came in through the front door. Landry paled and hunched in her seat. Caden crossed his arms and gave her a hard look. Finally, she nodded. Landry has something to tell you, Caden said. I hope you are enjoying Dragon's Reign so far. Now you've heard my work, and some of you may be reading it too. But what about looking at it? Well, you might not know, but I've got several manga series in development. One is called The Dark Earth. It's 10 volumes long, with the final volume being drawn now. The Dark Earth, like all my stories, has a young man who discovers that he is more than he seems. In this case, Aiden finds out he's actually an elven mage and not the normal human teenager he's thought all his life. Magic, mayhem, and fated love come into play, as well as darkness and monsters in this manga series. The first volume of The Dark Earth is free, so you can check it out and see if it interests you. A link to the first book series is in the description down below. Wally waddled up to them and cocked his egg-shaped head to the side. I'm all ears. Landry then proceeded to tell Wally everything that she had already told Caden. It was good to hear it for a second time because he made sure he didn't miss anything in this retelling. Wally never looked angry or even alarmed. He just seemed absorbed. He let her tell the whole thing without interrupting her, and then he started asking questions. He got out of her every single detail, even to what Jasper was wearing, a tan suit with a red handkerchief in the pocket, yet with boots instead of dress shoes, which was a strange thing, to the exact words used. Wally rubbed his chin and looked thoughtful. So I want to go to the authorities, Caden said. But Landry wants us to try and investigate first, so that when we go to report this, if there's something to report, that is, that we have evidence to give rather than just suspicions. I agree with Landry. I think we should find out more, Wally said. Caden blinked. He hadn't known what he expected Wally to say, but obviously agreement with Landry wasn't it. Really? I mean, really? Wally smiled at Caden. Look, kid, I've had my experience with the Claw and police. While some of them are interested in finding out the truth, a hell of a lot more of them are simply looking for a quick and easy answer, even if that answer is wrong. There's a lot of pressure to solve the bombing. Some humans first yahoos would fit the bill for many reasons, including political ones. If it came out that humans first tried to bomb normal people at the square, there would be a huge backlash, Landry agreed. Then she winced. I don't mean that shifters aren't normal, I just meant, oh man, I'm sorry, guys. It's okay, Landry. It's going to take a while to shed some of your bad habits, Wally said genially. He then grew more stern. I know that humans are getting short-shafted recently, but humans first is not the answer. He sliced one of his little arms through the air. They're a bad bunch, and they've taught you bad things. You've got to use that head of yours, that incisive mind. She nodded. I know that all now. You just had to be shocked out of things a bit, Wally agreed, then turned back to Caden. You look nervous about this. Yeah, infiltrating a terrorist group isn't exactly something I ever planned on doing, Caden admitted. My brothers aren't terrorists, Landry cried. Caden grimaced. Well, going undercover into a group never occurred to me before now. Are we sure that it's a good idea? Maybe I should just tell Valerius. The moment those words left his mouth, he was shaking his own head, even as Wally guffawed and Landry looked at him open-mouthed. Valerius isn't exactly subtle, kid, Wally said between chuckles. But that's not a knock. He's a dragon. Dragons aren't subtle. He'll just have the claw come down on humans first like the bomb he thinks they planted in the square. That will just lead to more violence. Yeah, Caden bit his lower lip. It totally will. And even if those knuckle-headed brothers of Landry's did have something to do with what went on, we don't want them hurt. We want justice, but we don't want revenge, Wally said with a sage nod. Caden looked at Wally curiously. How old are you, Wally? Why? Do I look old to you? Wally modeled before them. His wisp of black curly hair waved wildly in the air conditioning. Very funny. I was actually trying to give you a compliment, Caden said with a laugh. I just can't believe I didn't see it before, even without the night shine. You would talk about how things were before the war, and the things you said, well, you've seen a lot. Wally smiled, and there was a touch of sadness in his eyes. I have seen a lot, kid. Done a lot. Not all of it good. Not all of it bad. Sometimes people are given a life that challenges who they are, Wally said, and stuck his tongue against the inside of his right cheek. And in the face of those challenges, you find out who you really are. And sometimes that can be disappointing. But you left all that behind you, Caden said. I did, but only after I'd gotten the capital from doing the bad stuff to truly walk away from who I'd been, Wally said. Caden really wanted to ask him more about who he had been, what he knew about Marban, and so many other things, but there was plenty of things in the present to work out. Yeah, that sort of reminds me. He gave Wally a sheepish look. I sort of asked Rose to stop by today at noon for lunch, and maybe I was thinking that you might offer her a job. Rose? She's one of Marban's granddaughters. The one from last night? Wally asked, putting a rather acidic tone on the granddaughter part. Caden nodded. I think she's a good person. I mean, she's had it rough. Family kicked her out when they found out she was a bee shifter and... She's a swarm shifter? Landry sounded horrified. He'd had the same reaction, so he couldn't fault her for it. A bee shifter, it's different. Seeing Wally's even look at him, Caden added, okay, well, even if it isn't different, she is a good person who has had a hard life, and I really think that if she's given an actual chance, that she would choose to live differently. She's trapped by the kind of shifter she is, where she lives, and now Marban, too. Kid, I'm not saying your judgment about her is wrong, but you're saying it's wrong, Caden deadpanned. Wally held up a hand. Having been one of those kids who grew up in a poor area and found themselves as the wrong kind of shifter, I commiserate. But I also know that if you'd met me back then, well, it would be a 50-50 shot whether I'd be straight with you and take your helping hand or bite it off. I get that, Caden assured him, leaning a hip against the front counter. She warned me about that herself. She's still under Marben's sway and she owes him a ton, but I think I'm right. She's one of the good ones. Iolaire nodded its head in surprising agreement. If he hadn't already been sure of his position on Rose, he was now. Wally tapped his lower lip. All right, I'll interview her, and we'll see how that goes. But aren't bee shifters dangerous? Landry asked doubtfully. Dragon shifters are far more dangerous, Caden pointed out. Speaking of dangerous, how are you doing with controlling of the shifting? Wally asked with narrowed eyes as he likely imagined the white dragon filling the entire space. Iolaire cooed at Caden from where it was curled in his chest. Fine. Iolaire understands our limitations, he answered. Wally's bushy eyebrows rose. What hair he didn't have on his head was made up in volume by his eyebrows. Iolaire? A beautiful name. But also the name of a ship with a very tragic story. Caden frowned. What kind of tragic history? I leave that for you to look up yourself, Wally chuckled. Besides, it's probably not related, but it's an interesting choice for the spirit to have made. I hope you aren't comparing the spirit to a disaster, Landry cried loyally. Iolaire saved Caden and everybody else. Iolaire tilted its head back and preened. Wally lifted his hands in surrender. Not the least, Landry. Wow, she's a guard dog for Iolaire, isn't she? Are you like Tilly and want to ride a dragon, Landry? Caden teased. She pinked. Ride a dragon? You've got to be kidding me. I'm afraid of heights. He snickered. He had a feeling that Valerius would believe it beneath their dignity to let anyone ride him, so Caden was going to have the best time allowing Tilly to do it endlessly. He frowned. Where was Tilly? She'd just gone to get rags in the back room, but that had been ages ago. She might have gotten lost in all the cool merchandise that Wally kept back there. He should go check on her and see what their parents said in reply to her texts. Okay, so Rose should be here by noon. We should have a plan about what we're going to do tonight about Landry's brothers and our clandestine activities. But in the meantime, I'm going to go track down my sister. Those knickknacks aren't going to dust themselves, Caden told them. Wally pulled out his cell phone and said, I'm going to get in touch with some of my old contacts to see what the scuttlebutt is about the bombing. Caden pointed to the cell phone. How did you get that back? I remember that Shioni said that she had confiscated yours and Landry's last night, but you had yours right away. Wally's nose wrinkled. Kid, I'm a rat shifter. That means expert pocket picker. Shioni is a beautiful, accomplished person, but she's no match for me when it comes to the golden hands. Caden snorted and shook his head. There was a ding as a customer came in. As he headed towards the back, he heard Wally greet them effusively and felt a welling of warmth in his chest. This was the familiar happiness that he had wanted to experience again all of yesterday. Now he was back in the middle of it and was so glad. If they hadn't been talking about Wally's criminal past or their spying plans on humans first, everything could almost have been the same as it had been the day before. But of course, things were not at all the same, which was proven when he pushed open the door to the back room to see his sister talking to none other than Dragon King Valerius. I hope you enjoyed this week's chapter. If you want to read ahead in Dragon's Reign or read the many other stories hosted there, you can purchase a membership to get access to wraithrain.com, or you can continue to listen along here for free. If you'd like to learn more about wraithrain.com and me, there's a link in the description down below.